creepy and cool TikToks that will blow your mind. Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's go!
Disclaimer: this video is for entertainment purposes only. Please do your own research, as these clips haven't been fact-checked.
There's a new one that, we talked about before. Organic natural flavors.
Yeah.
Organic.
Yeah, where did
natural.
I see that? I think it was like an energy drink or something,
Yeah.
like a natural energy drink.
Yep.
Yeah.
They started throwing that out there now.
It's
Yeah.
like, it makes it sound a little bit better.
Yeah.
So if it's organic, shouldn't it just be organic if it's natural?
Right. How's
It
it
doesn't
natural
make sense.
flavors?
Yeah.
Because that's what organic is, right? It's natural. Natural flavors.
The key word is flavors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you mean? What do you mean
Flavors?
flavors?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Flavors is like, that's essentially what they're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
If it's flavor like. It's
But-
vanilla like.
The cold shit is you say natural flavors. I'm like, okay, what flavor though? Like everything is, I could say organic, but people or organisms, people are organic.
Right?
Yeah,
Like-
it's like
Yeah.
Because beavers, like a beaver's anus is used
Oh,
for
yeah.
vanilla flavoring.
yeah. So beaver ass is organic.
All right, man.
That's true.
That's an organic beaver ass.
So we're eating beaver ass?
That is true, though. If you think about it, it comes from nature.
Comes from nature.
Yeah.
It's like appeal. Me and my family, we're very like, where'd you get that apple? Where did you get those grapes? Because like I'll see my brothers eating something, and I'm like, where did you get that from? We'll only get fruit now. Like we don't buy fruit at the grocery store. And if there is fruit in the house, for my grandma who doesn't like look into stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like we'll do like farmers markets or whatever. But I'm like asking the people, like, do you use appeal or
Yeah.
organapeel?
Yeah.
Which is also another form of appeal.
You
But
asked
it's
the farmers.
organic.
You asked them at the farmers market.
I'll ask everybody.
Yeah, you have to.
Like, I don't care. And some people will disclose it and some people will be like, no, we don't. And I'm like, well, actually you do, because I asked like a higher up or whatever. And like, especially in the grocery stores, like they'll be like, oh, I'm sorry, we can't disclose that. Well, that just tells me that you do use it.
Right.
Because if you could disclose it, why wouldn't you just say
Wait,
it?
so apio is what? Beaver ass?
No.
No.
That's a totally different thing.
What is it?
Apeel is like a coating that they put like on the outside of fruits and vegetables. And it pretty much like we've tested it. We've had cucumbers, broccoli, tomatoes are like a big one. My grandma actually had a tomato on her countertop. I don't even know, 1 or 2 months, like perfect. So the fruit lasts forever because like the outer shell they put on it. The inside might be like a little, I was going to say schvat, which is an Italian word like mushy, but
Wait, what is the word?
schvat, like
Schmott.
Schmott.
schvat, like it's like musha, like mushy.
Okay.
But it goes bad. But like the outer shell in the grocery stores, it looks perfect.
Oh,
you don't
shit.
know what you're getting because everything looks so good. It's like, how does every apple look the same? There's no dents or bruises or anything.
So it's
like,
literally like the apple in Snow White. You know what I'm saying? Like
Perfect.
it was all nice and shit, and then she bit into it.
Yeah.
yeah.
It was ass.
Yeah, exactly.
I always thought natural flavors was BS.
Corey Feldman alleges in the new documentary about him that Corey Haim molested him. And that's just one of the few shocking moments in this new film. This follows Corey Feldman while he's on tour with his angels performing at bars. I felt a lot of things in this documentary. If you love documentaries, hit follow because I post daily and you'll always have something to watch. At first, I was laughing because this is an entertaining documentary and Corey Feldman is a very bizarre character. And I kind of felt bad for him because I'm like, wow, being a child star has had so many negative effects on him. But then as the documentary goes on, he becomes pretty abusive to the women around him, and he's saying that he formed this band to support women artists, but then he doesn't let them leave to eat, he doesn't pay them, he doesn't let them go see their families, he says horrible things to them about like not shaving their armpits to wear these revealing outfits that they don't want to wear. The camera's cut every time he like brings a woman onto the bus. It's kind of predatory and abusive. And by the end, I was feeling pretty disgusted, and this documentary was filmed prior to his documentary, The Rape of Two Coreys. Allegedly, he sent a cease and desist to this documentary. I'm assuming he doesn't like the way that it was edited or the way that it portrays him. And it's very clear in this documentary that he has a victim complex. He thinks that anytime somebody stands up to him, that they're attacking him or that they're in the wrong. I'm very disturbed by his behavior in this documentary, and you guys need to.
I believe people are very often both, abused and abusers.
A bloody crime scene frozen in time for nearly 60 years in a Hollywood mansion. The family's Christmas tree and unopened presents still inside. This is the wild story of the Los Feliz murder mansion. I'm Mel Z. I talk about death, true crime, and dark pop culture lore. So if you're a weirdo too, follow me. On December 6, 1959, Dr. Harold Perelson woke before dawn. He picked up a hammer and killed his wife Lillian while she was sleeping. He then went to his 18-year-old daughter Judy's bedroom and attacked her. Her screams woke the rest of the house, including her younger siblings. All three children managed to escape to a neighbor's house, and the police were called. When they entered the home, they found the Perelsons dead. The doctor had taken an overdose of pills and ended his life after the attacks. A year later, the beautiful 1920s Spanish Revival home was finally sold, with the Perelsons' belongings as part of the deal. But as far as anyone could tell, the new owners never moved in, and the house sat empty for decades. The people who were brave enough to sneak up to the house claimed that they could see a Christmas tree with wrapped presents still underneath. By the early 2000s, the house had become something else entirely, an urban legend. The mystery was actually solved quite a while ago, but nobody really wanted to hear it. An abandoned murder house is just way more intriguing. This is the owner of the house, Rudy Enriquez. When he was interviewed in the mid-2010s, he said that he'd used the house mostly for storage and that yes, some of the Perelsons' things were still there. He said that people had actually lived there over the years. He'd let friends stay there. He himself had been in and out, maintaining it and trying to keep people from breaking in. He said that the whole time he had the house, he never had any weird feelings. He never saw any ghosts, never saw any blood. The Christmas tree people had seen had been his. There were never any unopened presents there, just legend seekers peering through dark windows. After Rudy's death in 2015, the house was finally sold. New owners had plans to renovate. At some point, one of the most incredible things still left in the house, which was a hand-painted light switch cover in Judy's room, was stolen from the house. There has been much speculation over whether or not this is blood. In 2016, the buyers removed everything from the house and gutted it. Then, for some reason, they put it back on the market. It sold again in 2020 and was back on the market in 2022. And that's where it sits today, still empty. Yes, much of this story has been exaggerated or completely fabricated over the years, but the fact remains that since the 1959 murders, almost no one has lived in this house permanently. And that's what people hold on to. Would you live there? This topic was chosen by Ken, one of my Patreon members. If you have a story that you want me to tell, come join me over there. The photos used here were from the podcast The Los Feliz Murder Mansion by Cloudy Day Pictures. It is incredible and you need to listen to it immediately.
Beautiful house, horrific crime.
I want to talk about the hardest part to watch in the new Ruby Frankie docuseries, because the way I wanted to scream every time Kevin was on the screen. So I cover a lot of dark but interesting and informative documentaries, so follow along if that's your thing. But this is a new docuseries about Ruby Frankie, a famous YouTuber who is really abusing her children behind the scenes. But one of the people they spend a lot of time interviewing is Kevin, Ruby's husband and the father of the children she was abusing. And Kevin really tries to paint himself as this sad and brainwashed husband who just wanted his wife's affection and would do anything for it, including watching her manipulate and abuse their children, which he conveniently leaves out. The abuse really starts ramping up when she lets this fraud therapist, Jody Hildebrandt, live in her house with her family, but that's also when she asks Kevin to leave the family, which he does. And for the next year, he admits that he never saw his children, and he blocked a lot of them so they couldn't even communicate with him. And the doc doesn't touch on this, but if you read Sherry Frankie's book, who's the oldest daughter, you learn that when Kevin stepped away from the family, there was an older man within the church that started abusing her. He weaseled his way into her life by claiming he was the only adult that really cared about her, and he was very controlling, including demanding that she share her location with him 24/7 so he could just see what she was up to. Meanwhile, her dad is nowhere to be found, so she had no one she could confide in. And the worst part for me is at the end when Kevin explains that he didn't really believe the cops when they said that they had rescued his children who had been abused for years by his wife. He figured that Ruby must be telling the truth. Maybe they really were possessed by demons. But then he sees the condition his kids are in and he fully believes that yes, there was abuse that happened. But then the documentary director asks him if he still loves Ruby, and without even a second thought, he says yes. After all this time, after all the abuse she did to his children, he still loved her. Anyways, read Sherry Frankie's book if you can. It's a great companion piece to the docuseries and it gives a lot more information. And buy it if you're able to, because she does deserve to be supported as an author.
Man, he was right there with the rest of them. Come on, man.
You think Ozempic is about weight loss. You think Brian Johnson is about longevity. And you think looks maxing is about attractiveness. But you're wrong. Welcome to the Ozempic economy, where the quick fix is the trap. South Korean philosopher Byung-Chul Han called this the achievement society, where we've turned from you must do this to you can do this, which inevitably leads to burnout. And so when you've optimized your work, your leisure, your relationships, the last thing you can turn to is your body. And so Brian Johnson's multi-million-dollar experiment isn't just about living forever. It's about Hans Achievement Society medicalized. The optimization machine has now entered your bloodstream. French sociologist Pierre Bourdieu taught us about the four forms of capital and capital conversion: economic, going to cultural, going to social, going to symbolic. The Ozempic economy posits a fifth, which is bodily capital. Because when the economy is going to shit, the last convertible asset you have is your body. So Clavicular isn't just bone smashing. He's converting his physical pain into followers for money. So looks maxing isn't also just about attractiveness. It's just another form of capital arbitrage. The Ozempic economy is going to keep selling you quick fixes. So when the last thing you have true dominion over, which is your body, the optimization of health is probably not going to look like another peptide, because you're further perpetuating your own suffering into capital. Optimization then might actually look like subtraction. This is part one of a three-part series where I expand on the concepts from Kyla Scanlon's fantastic essay from last week. The Ozempic economy doesn't just stop at your body. Follow for part two.
I would also argue is the aesthetics of eugenics.
Ugh, they already know what I think of them. They all drink baby's blood to get high. It's kind of sick in a real bad way.
Keanu is daring the public to look straight into the abyss and see the truth staring back. The elite are running scared. The tapes are coming. Hollywood's house of cards is about to burn. Keanu fled Hollywood decades ago, under a shroud of mystery, while at the top of his game. He hinted years ago that there's a very strong reason why he's never acted in a Steven Spielberg movie, or appeared beside Tom Hanks in an acting role. Now, while promoting his new TV show Hooligans about his passion for motorcycle racing, he dropped a bombshell with a fan. The revelations that are coming out of Hollywood now, said Keanu, are just the tip of the iceberg. In 2017, he finally spoke out and said he finds it inconceivable that anybody could be so selfish as to destroy a young person's life for their own personal pleasure. But that is the sort of person running Hollywood, he said. These people are sociopaths, pure and simple. They see it as the ultimate high. They say it gives them life. The more the child suffered, the more fear and hormonal adrenaline it had in its system at the time of death, the stronger the effect on the people who consume that blood. They live with this stuff. Just to be clear, he said this in 2017, 9 years ago, and the world refused to listen.
Keanu is one of my favorite actors. John Wick, God bless his soul.
I regret to inform you that pole dancing started as a sport for men. In 12th century India, men trained on giant poles called malakam. Ancient warriors used them to build strength and flexibility. Meanwhile, in China, acrobats were also climbing poles, but for acrobat reasons. Then Europe saw a giant pole and immediately made it weird. The maypole was part of spring fertility rituals where people danced around a pole with ribbons. And before Victorians came along and ruined the fun, Beltane celebrations included bonfires, feasts, and drinking. Then came the Great Depression. Traveling carnivals featured hoochie coochie dancers inspired by Egyptian Ghawazi. Ghawazi were folk dancers who performed publicly and often danced unveiled. American showmen saw this and turned it into carnival entertainment. And at some point, somebody looked at a carnival tent pole and said, "What if I climb that?" So they did. The crowd loved it, so the pole stayed, and the dancers stayed. Eventually, the dancing moved from tents into bars, cabarets, and finally spicy clubs. But in the 1990s, the story came full circle. Women like Fania Monday started teaching it as an actual sport. Studios opened, competitions appeared, people started hanging upside down for the athleticism again. As a matter of fact, pole is now aiming to become an Olympic sport, and if breakdancing counts, then pole should be just fine. Thank you.
So we need to stop perpetuating the idea that indigenous people worship colonizers and thought that they were gods, because it has no historical basis. One of the wildest examples came from my own partner, Taylor. He grew up in the Mormon church, and what he was taught was that Quetzalcoatl, Kukulkan, or Kukumats, which is an ancient Mesoamerican creator god, was actually Jesus Christ visiting the Americas.
No way. Come on, man.
This idea actually came from John Taylor, the third president of the Mormon Church. He wrote it in 1882. The story of the life of the Mexican divinity Quetzalcoatl closely resembles that of the Savior, so closely indeed that we can come to no other conclusion that Quetzalcoatl and Christ are the same being. A feathered serpent creator god who governs Venus, who speaks the world into existence, who embodies wind and sky and the breath of life is the same being as Jesus. That is not a spiritual insight. That's a colonial reframe, and I need you to understand that that was spiritual colonization. It walks into a living sacred tradition and strips it of its own meaning and replaces it
That's Jesus right there.
with someone
Come
else's
on.
agenda. And it was used actively by Mormon missionaries throughout Latin America and art like this to convert indigenous communities by telling them their own ancestor deity was always pointing to Christ. And it worked on many. So let me tell you who Quetzalcoatl Kukulkan Cucumatz actually is. Quetzalcoatl Kukulkan Cucumatz is a feathered serpent, and every part of that image is intentional. The serpent body moving along the ground senses through vibration, feels through the earth. That is the feminine principle, intuition. The body, the deep knowing that lives beyond the mind. And the feathers reach towards the sky, towards the cosmos, towards the invisible. That is the masculine perspective and principle. The vision, expansion, the impulse toward the heavens. Feathered serpent is both at once, the heart of the earth and the heart of the sky held in one being. In Mayan cosmology, that union, feminine and masculine, earth and sky, serpent and bird, is not just beautiful, it is the prerequisite for creation. Nothing new is born without that balance. Maya encoded this into their architecture, their calendar, their ceremonies, their entire understanding of how the universe works. This is not a primitive belief system waiting to be upgraded from another religion. This is one of the most sophisticated cosmological teachings this earth has ever produced, and it belongs to the people who carried it, not to anyone who came along later and needed it to mean something else. Share what you know about Cucumatz, Kukulkan, or Quetzalcoatl in the comments. We need to talk more about this.
Women today fear aging. Victorian women feared looking alive. During this time, women didn't want to look healthy. They wanted to look like they were slowly dying from disease. It was an obsession with the appearance of suffering and death, stemming from one of the deadliest diseases in history, tuberculosis. Despite its reputation, it became an inspiration because, ironically, tuberculosis only seemed to enhance a woman's beauty. Women suffering from
Get out of here.
the disease were described as having dilated, sparkling eyes, naturally rosy cheeks and lips, and pale porcelain skin. The disease also caused a loss of appetite, leading to extreme thinness, slim figures, tiny waists, which were already considered beautiful. It was this contrast that made it so twistedly beautiful, a seemingly unattainable beauty caused by suffering. And of course, that was romanticized. Women who suffered from tuberculosis became muses. The effects of the disease inspired art, books, theater, further embedding itself into culture and into ideas about beauty. But of course, unless you actually contracted the disease yourself, this level of beauty was impossible to achieve. But the Victorians sought a solution. They found a way to fake it. Women would consume arsenic, poison, to achieve a pale complexion. They also apply products containing arsenic directly onto their skin. They practice bloodletting, intentionally draining blood from your body to feel and appear weak and fragile. They starve themselves. They lace their corsets a little too tightly, and they use belladonna drops to dilate their pupils to recreate that doe-eyed gaze. The Victorians didn't just believe in the phrase beauty is pain, they took it to another level.
You know, the fine line between beauty obsession and body mutilation.
If you ever get
I think it's still prevalent today.
kidnapped, you do what Elizabeth Smart did because her last name was Smart for a reason. Also, hi, I'm Grace. Can I be your horror girly? So they came in through her window, kidnapped her into the night. Her sister saw
She had so many chances to escape, but she didn't.
all of it. Then they took her to the forest nearby and he married her and she was 14. When they decided that they were going to leave town, she knew she was going to be if she didn't figure something out. This is from the Netflix documentary Kidnapped that came out earlier this week. So what does she do? She goes up to this homeless religious man who has trapped her. She says, you know, you're so great and you're so grand. I think God told me that we actually have to go back to Utah, but I'm a dumb, stupid little woman. She said this after she gained his trust. So she was like, you need to check with God to make sure I'm not just a dumb, stupid woman and see if that's really what God is telling us to do, since you're his prophet and you're his chosen one. And he was like, yeah, I know, I'm pretty great, and you are a dumb, stupid woman. So let me check with God now that we both trust each other. Let me check with God, and I'll let you know what God says. And then he comes back to her and he's like, you know, God actually did agree because things are not working out here. Let's go back to Utah. Thank you, Elizabeth. These are pictures from the campsite. But then that is how this girl was then later rescued and found. And thank God her parents were like, the police's advice, we're just going to go public with the suspect sketch because at this point we have nothing to lose. Like, we have everything to gain. And so based on this sketch that came to the little sister's mind months later, and then all of the missing photos of Elizabeth, someone in a random area in Utah recognized them together. Because remember, she was also walking around with her little religious thing. And if a police came up to them, he would say she can't take it off because of her religion. But because they showed the picture to the public, someone then saw them, alerted the police, and then she was discovered and she was saved. All because she said, we got to go back to Utah. And the parents released the pictures.
Anytime there's a conversation about children being exploited in Hollywood, I feel like Alicia Silverstone's story always gets overlooked. Alicia started to model at a very young age. Her father is the one that pushed her into it. During an interview with Rolling Stone, she mentioned how she basically was worked like a horse. Father Monty had a full-time career in real estate and was said to be conservative, except for when it came to his own daughter, because according to Alicia, she has a photo of herself in a bikini at 6 years old on all fours on a white carpet.
Sick.
These photos were seen by a lot of people because he used them on casting calls to get her modeling gigs. At 15, she landed the lead role in 1993's Crush, opposite a 29-year-old Carrie who was supposed to be like her twisted love interest. The whole movie is about a 15-year-old girl who is obsessed with a much older man. After he moves into her family's guest house, they have a boundaryless relationship where they end up kissing. And the much older man realizes how wrong it is, but that comes after he watches her undress. It's like all really weird and twisted. It caught the attention of a very popular band, which would be Aerosmith. Apparently around this time, the band needed help in sales. They were kind of like in their flop era. So what better to attract sales than a teenage girl? Alicia was 16 in this video, and Steven Dorff, her leading man in the video, was 20, and she was all over him. This music video, Crying, pretty much tripled their sales at the time. So they, of course, then used Alicia again, but this time they added Steven Tyler's daughter. Alicia and Liv were both minors in this video, but they had them doing stuff like stripping, taking photos with no clothes on, giving those pictures to like older men. And of course, this was a super popular video too. Alicia, however, was super uncomfortable with how she was being portrayed and how people would speak about her and say that they would want to do certain things to her. And even though she was screaming like, I'm just a kid, let me be, people just wouldn't. The exposure from that video did land her most iconic role, which was Cher in Clueless. Alicia seemed to have a good time on the set of this movie, probably because the director was a woman and it was a different environment for her. This role, she was projected to be like Hollywood's next it girl. After landing the Batgirl role, it seemed like everything just went downhill for her. People were constantly body shaming her, saying that she was no longer cute as an adult. People reported that she was about 130 pounds in this role and couldn't fit into her costume. This movie flopped badly and it severely hurt her career. Alicia then went on to produce some movies with friends, and she was able to do love scenes the way that she wanted to, like fully clothed. And even though those movies weren't well received, it seemed like she was just happy to have control over her life finally. Alicia will always be iconic, always be beautiful, and always be talented. I'm just sad that Hollywood did not treat her better.
It's just so sad that her own dad would do that.
The largest land animals on Earth have been hiding in a forest for decades now, and nobody could ever prove that they existed. So deep in the highlands in Angola, there's a population of elephants that locals have been trying to find for decades. They literally call them ghost elephants, and apparently they move at night and avoid all human contact. And despite years of searching now, no scientist ever in history has ever been able to see one with their own eyes. A conservation biologist named Steve Boyce spent over 10 years trying to find them. He went in by motorbike, by helicopter, and placed 180 motion cameras and 100 different microphones across the entire forest. 7 entire years of recordings and not a single elephant in any single one of them. People actually started comparing him to someone chasing a myth, because if they can't find him, then nobody's believing it. Then a former hunter sent him a message and basically just said, "You're looking in the wrong place," so he changed direction. And finally, the cameras caught something. It was eyes glowing in the dark and the first official images of a ghost elephant ever recorded. They hid from humans for decades, and we officially can confirm that they are real.
If they are trying to fake humans, maybe we should leave them alone.
There's this movie about a world that traded dreaming for immortality. This movie has 6 chapters, 6 completely different stories, completely different cinematic language for each, and most people have never even heard about this movie. I'm talking, of course, about Resurrection by director B. Gunn. This is a film that made the Cannes Film Festival revive the Prix Special, an award that hadn't been given out in 29 years, because the jury could not fit this movie into any existing category. Jury president Juliette Binoche called it a UFO, an amazing invention. Our director here is B. Gunn, and he's 36, and he's made 3 films in 10 years, including a movie called Long Day's Journey into Night, which has a 60-minute 3D section in the middle of it that took 7 attempts to film and 2 months of preparation. And now you've got Resurrection at 2 hours and 40 minutes with 6 completely different chapters filmed in 6 completely different ways. You've got film noir, you've got expressionism, you've got neon, you've got one-shots. It's actually staggering, and it's the kind of movie that will remind you of why you fell in love with cinema in the first place. And yet, most people just haven't heard about it. Make sure you go watch it. In the movies or on streaming, go find it. You won't regret it. And if you've made it this far, make sure to follow.
Is it true that there was a trap door in his house on the island that released to the sea?
Yeah, there's an image of it.
Okay,
in the files.
that's real.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen this image, I'm going to kind of just describe it. It's dark. It looks like it's just in the floorboard of a room, and you open it, and it's not like to a reef or anything like that, or with a ladder. It's just to darkness, to the sea. Of course, a lot of the allegations naturally are that was a way to dispose of people, things. You're done. It's off into the sea. It's an easy way. You don't have to ever leave the house. You're never going to get caught being seen in public. You're already in the house, and it's a way to dispose of things. I'm just going to say, if I ever had a mansion on an island on the water, I probably would do like an overwater hut, like the Maldives or something like that. I don't know that I would have a trap door in my dining room that just releases to the bottom of the ocean. Like, that feels a little weird.
Yeah.
But I'm not a billionaire, so I don't fucking know. But like, that's weird, right?
Everything's so weird. I mean, there was one image and they took it down, and I don't know why. It's the image of a kitchen and 3 steaks, and then what looks like a bone or bone marrow could very well be bone marrow, right? It was up last week. They took it down this week.
So who is taking it down?
The DOJ, the Department of Justice. But
and why? If they released everything, why are you now taking it back?
Because my assumption is that they thought Americans and the world were dumber than we are, and people are analyzing these images, knowing we can turn images into videos, knowing that there are hidden links in these images. Like in one image, you click on the link, you right click, there's a little blue dot, and you right click on it, and it takes you to Roblox.
Don't get me started on Roblox.
Yes, use the lie detector on every one of them. Let's get this over with.
All right, you guys, one more place I had to take you, not for the architecture, but because this is the site of one of, if not the most deadliest fire in American history that most nobody knows about. The reason you don't hear about this great fire, and I'm talking about Peshtigo, Wisconsin, is because the same exact night, at exactly the same time, October 8th, 1871, as this being the site, the final remains of hundreds of those victims. You don't hear about it because that date might sound familiar, though, because it was the same exact night as the Great Fire of Chicago. So, oddly enough, Chicago's about 4 or 5 hours at least from here in a car. And it wasn't just 1 or 2 great fires that happened simultaneously at the same exact time. at the same exact area of the Midwest. Manistee, Holland, Michigan, Port Huron, Michigan, Peshtigo, Chicago, and many other cities, almost 10 cities simultaneously at the same exact time, erupted in flames. Now, this is another one. Does that math add up? There is no common ground between them. And it wasn't that flames from one city like Chicago spread as far north as Peshtigo, missing major cities like Green Bay, Appleton, many others, just to name a few on the way. But they started at the exact same time. They say the only thing that happened was high winds and a dry season caused these cities to ignite simultaneously. Let me know if you believe that official narrative. Question everything, friends. Until next time.
The amount of fires in 1871 and how they started is insane.
Living on Earth might feel like hell, but at least it is not any of these planets. This is HD 189773b, where it rains glass, but sideways. Winds are over 5,000 miles per hour, so you'd be shredded immediately. And it smells like rotten eggs, just like
Ooh.
Uranus. Or Lava Ocean planet, Kepler.
Just like Uranus.
10b. Its entire surface is just lava, never-ending lava. Trust 2b is the darkest exoplanet. It absorbs 99% of light, like Vanta Black Dark. Celt 9b is the hottest exoplanet, so hot it rips molecules apart. Then the molecules recombine when it gets slightly cooler, only to be ripped apart again. Also potato-shaped stretched out planet, WASP 12b. It's being stretched to its breaking point because it's being sucked into a star. HR 5183b, the Whiplash planet, orbits like a slingshot, doubles as a wrecking ball for anything that dares to cross its path. WASP 76b, it does not rain glass here, it rains iron. And of course, Kepler 452b, a planet way too much like Earth. Same orbit, same sun, same temperature. What's so scary about this? There might be life on there. What would this life look like? No idea, but it's probably horrifying. And even worse to think about is that there's at least 6 billion of these Earth-like planets in our galaxy alone that we know of. Thank you.
There is a conspiracy theory about Saturn being hell. Listen to Saturn's audio.
Why can't men today be as romantic as they were in the late 16th century? This portrait miniature was commissioned by this unknown man, and it's unusual because he is depicted in a state of undress, he's only in his shirt, and he is also surrounded by flames, the flames of his burning passion. He is also drawing his attention to this locket. It's a jewelled necklace, and we presume that inside there's a portrait of his lover inside, again declaring his love and showing his passion. Similarly, here we have another portrait miniature of a man consumed by flames. This dates to 1610 and it was painted by Nicholas Hilliard. Once more, he's depicted in a state of undress. He's in a blue shirt and he is also consumed by the flames of his undying passion. And to really hone in on this fact, we can see a Latin inscription above this man's head, which translates to, "He becomes cold who does not burn." And here we have a very famous portrait miniature. This is also by Nicholas Hilliard and this dates to about 1587. It epitomises love and romantic yearning. This elegantly dressed man is holding his heart with his right hand, again a symbol of love in these portraits. And this is another portrait miniature of a young man in love, also by Nicholas Hilliard, and it dates to the 1590s. Instead of Hilliard's usual blue background, here we have a black one. This apparently was difficult for Hilliard to work with and suggests that the sitter himself insisted upon it. And this might be because black is emblematic of constancy, because it will take no other colour. And so here is another man declaring his love and also his constancy and fidelity to his lover. Now, what makes all of these paintings even more romantic is that they were tiny little paintings which were intended as a personal gift to someone, worn close to their hearts or could be held in their hands, and as a result were even more romantic. What makes these portraits so fascinating is the level of intimacy. In a society where even holding hands or touching hands in public was highly regulated, these miniatures allowed lovers to carry a piece of each other wherever they went. So when these men were having themselves painted amid loads of flames or with their hair down, their shirts undone, they were declaring to their lover how much they loved them and they wanted them to remember. It was a deeply visual declaration of love, whilst also being highly private.
Have any of you ever heard of Peter Nygaard, or for that matter, SCNT, stem cell therapy? Let me give you a little background story on how this man went from this to this in less than a year just because he was cut off from his own invention.
What?
Peter Nygaard was a very famous fashion mogul back in the day who created the clothing line Slims, not to be confused with Skims, of course, which was sold in stores like Macy's. Apparently still is. He was very well known amongst celebrities and politicians. He even received a presidential jacket from George W. Bush and 2 Jubilee medals from Queen Elizabeth in which she stated, "Nygaard made Canada what it is today." Peter had a long list of rumored madames, including Pamela Anderson, Anna Nicole Smith, which surprisingly enough was never mentioned in her Netflix documentary, and Instagram model Sulin Menderes. Now it's alleged that Peter Nygaard's madames weren't just his girlfriends, they worked for him. They would lure in young girls online using their model status and tell them that they were going to have fun in paradise and jet ski and have a blast. However, when they got there, it was more like a scene from Blink Twice.
The girls would come down in the morning looking absolutely dreadful and say, you know, can you get us out of here? Can you get us out of here?
Really?
And we'd say, no, we can't because we didn't bring you in, so you've got to go ask him for your plane ride.
And in return for victims, Peter Nygaard would pay his madames cash, jewelry, plastic surgery, and stem cell injections. Now what I found interesting is that instead of going to jail, Sulin Menderes ended up becoming wife of Hollywood plastic surgeon Dr. Garth Fisher. And not just any Hollywood plastic surgeon, the Kardashians' plastic surgeon. So close they even see each other for the holidays. But let's get back to the stem cell, shall we? Now you can do any brief research online and find out that yes, Hollywood celebrities are injecting stem cells for a more youthful appearance. You can literally find article after article about stem cell research and the celebrities that use it. However, where do they come from? And where did Peter Nygaard get his?
He was obsessed, Peter Nygaard was, with stem cell research and anything that he could get his hands on to preserve his health and youth and to create longevity. And according to many people involved in the investigation, he actually would impregnate underage girls, have them get abortions, and then harvest the stem cells, the fetuses, to inject in himself under the belief that it would be more beneficial than random stem cells from another source.
And it's rumored that he even admitted to victims that,
You know, Brookie, how I look so good. You know, I look like a lion. You know how I look so young. It's the blood. It's the blood of the youth. It's the blood of the babies. Everybody gives me their blood. Everybody gives me their blood. I'm like,
there's a lot more to it and there's a lot more connections than what I have shown. But I often wonder if Hollywood is using stem cell treatments, where did they get the stem cells? Who got Peter Nygaard's invention? Because it obviously didn't go anywhere.
What do you think they push for, the abort so hard?
Ask anyone who was or is a drug addict who was around when Philip Seymour Hoffman died, and they will tell you that this was the most horrifying celebrity death that ever happened. I'm Mel Z. I talk about death, true crime, and dark pop culture stuff, so if you're a weirdo too, follow me. Philip Seymour Hoffman is often described as one of the greatest actors of his generation. And for many critics, his performance in The Master is among the greatest pieces of acting of the 21st century. On February 2nd, 2014, Hoffman was found dead in his Manhattan apartment at just 46 years old. His death was ruled an accidental overdose caused by a combination of heroin, cocaine, benzodiazepines, and amphetamines. Just months earlier, he'd been to rehab trying to get control of a relapse after 20 years of sobriety. During that time, he and his longtime partner, Mimi O'Donnell, had started living separately, not because they were no longer together, but because he wanted to shield their children from his addiction. Throughout all of this, his career never faltered. He won an Academy Award for his performance in Capote, earned 3 more Oscar nominations, multiple Golden Globe, Tony, and Emmy nominations, and was revered by peers and critics as a once-in-a-generation talent. I was a drug addict at the time of his death and was considering going to rehab, and then he died, and it was absolutely devastating. I remember sliding down my wall crying because it was terrifying that after 20 years of being clean and sober, addiction could kill him anyway. And it just reminded me and many other addicts of that reality. It was also a reminder of the thing that we all know. Fame and fortune does not spare you from tragedy. And despite everything he had, all of his success, all the love in his life, he still died alone with a needle in his arm. His legacy carries on through his son, Cooper Hoffman, who himself is a highly acclaimed actor and is a lot like his dad. It continues to break my heart over 10 years later.
Women's shorts and skirts today are way too short. Please, your grandmas were shorter. Our grandma's generation invented controversially short hemlines. Think Jane Birkin's t-shirt and baby doll dresses, Brigitte Bardot's tiny shorts. These were the styles half a century ago. The miniskirt first made its debut more than 50 years ago in the 1960s. It was so scandalous that it was banned. Women from our grandma's generation literally marched on the streets to protect their right to wear a short skirt. And when they came out on top, they made them even shorter. Fast forward to the 1970s, these shocking and provocative hot pants came onto the scene. Ultra short shorts with inseams that were barely there, often paired with tight t-shirts, platform heels, and boots. This trend pushed the boundaries and tested the limits of modesty even more. These were the styles on the streets more than 50 years ago. So really, we have invented nothing. No one did short quite like our grandmas over half a century ago.
Hating on mini skirts is a recession indicator.
I would like to argue that men can get periods. Well, they used to, kind of. It was a parasite worm that made men bleed from their wieners in ancient Egypt.
That's crazy, man.
Basically, everybody used the Nile for bathing, swimming, fishing, farming, literally everything. Unfortunately, the Nile was infested with parasitic worms called schistosomes. These parasites came from freshwater snails, so the second people stepped into the water, these parasites would burrow straight through human skin. No bites, no wounds, they just entered your body. Then they'd travel through your bloodstream and live there for years. The adult worms would mate inside the bodies and release thousands of eggs into the organs. People develop stuff like swollen stomachs, liver damage, bladder damage, and chronic pain. And in men, blood in the urine, which happened so much in ancient Egypt that some Egyptian texts describe boys becoming men once that blood appeared in their urine. So basically a puberty ritual, but make it horrifying. Historians even found evidence of these parasites in actual mummies. And even more messed up, this parasite has not only existed in Egypt for thousands of years, it still exists today. So technically, this ancient Nile parasite is still out there giving men nightmare blood pee worms. Thank you.
Can we inject those into grapes?
Imagine pooping so hard that you accidentally turn yourself into an artistic genius. Okay, crazy hook, but completely true story. Back in 2001, this guy named Tommy McHugh was sitting on the toilet, and when someone knocked on the door, he attempted to evacuate his bowels too quickly, accidentally blowing 2 blood vessels on both sides of his brain. He ended up in a 10-day coma, but when he finally woke back up, he instantly realized something just felt off. In the 51-year-old's own words, my head was suddenly full of rhymes and images and pictures. I looked out of the window, and the tree was sprouting numbers. Although Tommy had just been a builder before and had never even had the smallest interest in art, he quickly started only speaking in rhymes, writing poetry, and also making these elaborate paintings of what he was now seeing in the world. He actually soon began drawing for up to 19 hours a day and genuinely enjoyed it since everything now struck him as beautiful and cosmically meaningful. But since Tommy still had no idea what was going on, he eventually wrote to several neuroscientists who ran tests on him and realized that while most people's frontal lobes filter the raw sensory data we receive from our surroundings, Tommy's injuries accidentally blocked this filter, allowing him to see and hear much more. Although he had previously lived a violent life with a long history of drug abuse and had even gone to prison, this injury actually helped him and made him unusually emotional and unable to hurt anyone anymore. And Tommy later said, the most wonderful thing to happen to Tommy McHugh is having a stroke while doing a poo. It's given me 11 years of a magnificent adventure.
He birthed a new consciousness.
I've just watched a movie that I genuinely loved, but I will never recommend to a single person. And that movie is Dogtooth. by Yorgos Lanthimos, the same guy who brought you Poor Things, but also Begonia, The Lobster, The Favorite, and although I'll probably never recommend this one, I still want to talk about it. I'm Seb, and I like to talk about movies. So what are we doing here? Well, Dogtooth is about a controlling, manipulative father, and this guy keeps his 3 adult children locked inside the family compound. Now here's the thing, they've never left. They don't know the outside world exists. He's been lying to them about what words mean their entire lives. What I mean by that is that any word that they could have used to understand the external world, like telephone, he explains to his children mean small plant, for example. So they think telephone means small plant. And how do you handle language when someone controls the definitions? How do you handle relationships, death? The film takes you through all of it, and every layer makes the control feel more total. Now, the actors, in my opinion, deserve the real credit here. They are put in genuinely awful situations, and they go for it completely, constantly. It's also doing something with Greece in 2009, and obviously this might have been shot in like 2008. And what are the economic pressures of that time and what they do to a family, which gives it more weight than a film this strange probably should have. It's definitely a slow burn. It's definitely got a low budget, but it put Yorgos Lanthimos on the map. And this movie peers into his mind like none of the other movies do. He's a little freak and I like it. I gave this movie 3 stars and I probably won't watch it again, but I'm glad I did. And if you want to see something weird,
boring.
This might be the one, but don't recommend it to your friends and family, please. If you've made it this far, make sure to follow.
This is what evil actually looks like. Eduard von Grützner spent his entire career painting monks. Jolly, red-faced monks drinking wine, eating well, living better than they should. Then in 1895 he painted the devil, and he didn't change a thing. Same round face, same satisfied grin, same comfortable excess. Grützner wasn't being lazy, he was making a point. The devil doesn't arrive with horns and fire, he arrives looking exactly like the man you already trust. The one who seems harmless, even likeable. That's what makes this painting so disturbing. It's not a portrait of a monster. It's a portrait of someone you'd never suspect.
There are 180,000 new pictures in the recent Epstein drop, and I went through about 1,000 of them, and here are some that I found to be odd that nobody's talking about. And just as a warning, proceed with caution because some of these are disturbing. There's this piece of art in one of Jeffrey's guest rooms, and it stood out to me because this guy right here has red or what looks like bloody feet. It caught my eye because in one of the emails, it talks about ritualistic sacrifices that were happening on a yacht where African American men were having sex with white women, and then they would slice their feet with a sword. Now, everybody knows about this Bill Clinton picture that's hanging in Jeffrey Epstein's home. But I found another one hanging over an office toilet. It's clearly a character drawing of Bill Clinton with Jeffrey Epstein boarding a jet that I have to assume is Lolita Express with 2 other guys in the background. And I have my guesses, but I'm curious who you think these 2 are. There were bookshelves in every single room with tons of books, and I wanted to know what type of books Jeffrey was reading. I put this bookshelf through AI, and here's a list of what it was. Everything from unraveling the mysteries of the universe to the city of Jerusalem to degenerate art from Nazi Germany. And there were also a bunch of rooms that were being remodeled, but to me, it looked a lot more like a Dexter scene than anything else. And last but not least, there was this picture on the counter. And when you zoom in, it's none other than Steve Bannon and Jeffrey Epstein. And if you haven't already watched the 2-hour interview with the 2 of them, you definitely should. And we all should be demanding for the additional 13 hours to be released ASAP. I'll do another video when I go through the next few thousand, but for now, I want to hear what you think about all of this down below.
They all need to be called out. Why is it that every time a story is told about Ellen DeGeneres, it gets weirder and weirder? And why do I say that? Because there was a man who now claims that when he was a child, he was a guest on Ellen DeGeneres' show. And he claims to have seen her do some unhuman, scary, like robotic stuff. So the individual in question at the time was a child prodigy chess player. And as you can see, this is an image from the show he was on. He was a guest on the Ellen DeGeneres show. And the claim is that once he got off the set and went back to his dressing room, Ellen DeGeneres' door was open he took a look in at the door. It was open enough that he could see inside. So he turned his head and he looked. And what he saw next really blew his mind. And his claim is that Ellen DeGeneres was eating a rotisserie chicken, similar to the ones you see behind me.
Ooh.
Now, he alleges that what he saw next, she opened her mouth wide open, dislocated her jaw to fit the entire chicken in
What?
one bite. Let me repeat.
I don't buy
The
it.
alleged claim is that she took a rotisserie chicken, opened her mouth wide, dislocated her jaw, and stuffed the entire chicken in her mouth and swallowed it in one shot, and then turned and looked directly at him. And then claims as she was staring at him, she made a hissing sound. He then proceeded to run to his dressing room and let his
Reptilian.
mother know what he just saw. His mother did not believe him. So my question to you is, do you believe what he said he saw? Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. And as always, I'd love to hear from you.
You know what? I believe him. And funny she fled the U.S. This has been exposed.
They manipulated their way to the top of the charts in the 90s. Then they filmed themselves burning the millions of dollars that they earned. This is the absolutely insane story of the KLF. I'm Mel Z. I talk about death, true crime, and dark pop culture lore. So if you're a weirdo too, follow me. The KLF were a British pop duo made up of Bill Drummond and Jimmy Cauty. Bill Drummond already knew how the music industry worked. He'd managed bands like Echo and the Bunnymen and the Teardrop Explodes. Cauty was the technical brain. Their early music was basically sample-based vandalism. They stole from the Beatles, from ABBA. Then in 1988, under the name The Time Lords, they released the single Doctor in the TARDIS, which was a mashup of the Doctor Who theme song, glam rock, and just total nonsense. And it hit #1 on the charts. So they wrote a book explaining exactly how they did it and called it The Manual. In it, they laid out the blueprint of how to write a #1 hit song. It was basically them saying pop music is stupid. There's a simple formula that people will eat up. By the early 90s, they rebranded as the KLF and accidentally became legitimate superstars. They released massive stadium house hits like 3 AM Eternal and Justified and Ancient. By 1991, they were the biggest selling singles act in the UK and had massive hits worldwide. They had successfully beaten the system, and then they destroyed it. At the 1992 Brit Awards, instead of the pop performance everyone had expected, they teamed up with grindcore band Extreme Noise Terror. Bill Drummond stood on stage in a kilt, chomping on a cigar and shooting a machine gun loaded with blanks over the heads of the shocked audience. As they left the stage, the band's promoter announced over the PA, the KLF have now left the music business. In 1994, as the K Foundation, they took £1 million in actual bills and filmed themselves burning it. Bundle after bundle, you can see them throwing them into the fire, and it's painful to watch. People were extremely angry. The money could have been given to charity or used to build hospitals. There were a million better uses for the money than this. And the band themselves couldn't fully explain why they had done this, though it had been intended as a huge fuck you to the music industry. Bill Drummond later said that it was a really difficult thing to explain to his children. In 2021, they started re-releasing their music to streaming services after years of it being deleted. Today, they still do strange conceptual projects here and there. Whether you love them or hate them, the KLF were definitely originals. Their legacy is either one of the greatest art projects in history or the most punk pop band that ever existed. What do you think?
This is my #1 documentary. It haunted me for days after watching it. I watch 3 documentaries a day, over 1,000 documentaries in a year, and this one has held my #1 spot for the last year. Nothing has taken its place. It is absolutely amazing. It's called Beyond Utopia, and it is about this man who smuggles families out of North Korea to save them, and it is extremely intense. If you love documentaries, make sure to hit follow because I post daily and you'll always have something to watch. If you try to escape, you will get killed. This guy rescued his wife from North Korea and decided to continue to help families escape North Korea, which is extremely dangerous. This follows the story of multiple families that he's trying to help get out of North Korea. He sends them SD cards over the border so that they can secretly film their escape in areas where he can't be. And let me tell you, not all of these stories end happily. I hadn't seen anything like this before. The filmmakers risked their lives for this documentary. I personally don't think that we talk enough about the people of North Korea and what they go through every day. This documentary blew me away. I thought about it for days and days and days. It really stuck with me. It broke my heart. It's just amazing. Let me know what you think about this in the comments.
Guys, I have something to talk to you about. Okay, so one of the comments I saw said that Joan of Arc, Saint Joan of Arc, whatever, her best friend was the first serial killer. And I had to look into it. Come to find out, like, this is crazy. Apparently his name was Guile de Reyes. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. He was a nobleman and a military commander. Come to find out, he had unalived like dozens of adults, men, women, children, in like an occult type ritual. Apparently, after Joan of Arc was executed in 1431, that's when his life took that turn. Nobody knows if he was doing it beforehand or if maybe losing Joan of Arc was, I'm gonna call her Joan, was like his triggering point. I feel like you can't really be triggered to do that. You kind of had in your head this whole time. He had to have been doing it because like this is something you just wake up and be like, you know what? I want to do that. He used his wealth and status to cover everything up, and he was executed in 1440. I had to go double check that. And I don't know if I said 1441 for her being executed, but she was executed, Joan, in 1431. He was executed in 1440. And he is the first documented serial unaliver in Europe. I think I said the K word earlier. Hopefully this video doesn't get taken down. Isn't that so crazy? History is insane. I wish I paid more attention in history class, but my teacher, she just blah, blah, blah. Anyway, y'all, I'm older now and wiser. So always make sure you like and follow. Comment down below if we should keep diving into crazy dark history.
They were not teaching us this in history.
This is why Japanese people dress better than Americans. If you walk around Tokyo, everyone has their own incredible and unique personal style. And you'll often notice people wearing expensive designer pieces, which didn't really make sense to me at the time because from what I know, the average wage in Japan isn't that high. So while visiting, I asked my friend who lives and works in the Tokyo fashion scene, how do people our age actually afford this? And his answer surprised me. He said they don't. But that's exactly why they dress so well. Let me explain.
Thrift store.
When someone wants to buy an expensive fashion piece, they'll work and save for months just to buy it. And the whole time, they're imagining outfits, deciding if it actually fits their style, and whether they'll wear it years from now. But this honestly explains a lot. When you spend months saving for one piece of clothing, you aren't buying trends that will likely be over by the time you can afford it. You're instead forced to be intentional. When clothing takes time and discipline to earn, whether that's saving money or spending hours digging through thrift racks, people develop better personal style and taste. That's why in Japan, style is something people build over time. In America, it's often something people try to keep up with. And
this girl lived a completely different life with a husband and kids while in a coma and is now going to therapy for it because in this reality, her family does not exist. And by the way, when she woke up, the first thing she did was ask for her kids. That's how real her experience was, because while in a 3-week coma, she lived almost a decade where she fell in love, got married, had triplets, and even experienced grief after losing one of them. She says she even remembers the intense labor pains and even the skin-on-skin contact with her babies. And even a year after waking up, she still misses her family and feels disconnected from this world. Now, if you remember, I've talked about Dr. Evan Alexander, a neurosurgeon who slipped into a coma for 7 days and his experience went against science. He had a non-functioning neocortex, which is the part of the brain that's responsible for conscious thought, sensory perception, memory. And during his coma, he experienced this elaborate journey, which he says was the afterlife. And it seemed to have taken months or even years, even though in reality, it was only 7 days he was in the coma. These experiences are not that uncommon because even some of us wake up feeling like this after a good night's rest. So, are we slipping into other realities?
Fascinating.
They're not clones. It's worse than that. Everyone's talking about celebrity clones, but what if I told you it's not cloning? It's something the Bible warned us about 3,000 years ago.
Yeah, Oprah.
And you've seen it. Your favorite artist suddenly acts different, or your favorite actor, a different energy, different eyes, and people say they cloned them. But listen, cloning is the cover story for what's actually happening. The Canaanites practiced child sacrifice to Moloch, but it wasn't just killing. In Leviticus 18 and 21, they call it passing through the fire. They were performing soul transfer rituals, harvesting life force and putting entities into other bodies. That technology never died. It just went underground. When someone signs their life away to the industry, that's a covenant. It's a trauma-based programming, and it fractures the original soul. And rituals create the opening. The original person dies spiritually, and a prepared entity walks its way on in the same body, but a different driver. And that's why they seem off. In Mark 5 and 9, it says legion, multiple entities in one body, familiar spirits. In Leviticus 19 and 31, it says demons that mimic the person they replaced. This isn't new. It's ancient Canaanite tech repackaged for entertainment industrial complex. It explains sudden personality changes, lost memories, and different mannerisms, and doing unspeakable things without remorse, because their conscious left, and what's operating now is something else entirely. They don't clone bodies, they steal them, and you're watching it happen in real time.
Isn't this what Get Out warned us about?
What happens when blue isn't just a color, but a way of life, and a Grammy-winning genre of music. Welcome to episode 11 of Fashion Around the World. These are the Tuaregs, a nomadic people spread across North and West Africa. They're known as the Blue Men of the Sahara, or the self-anointed people of the Veil, and despite being followers of Islam, it's actually men who cover their faces, as Tuareg culture is matrilineal, meaning inheritance passes through the mother. The main cultural garment is the togolmust, which boys receive at 15 in a formal initiation ceremony. The cloth wrapping style is unique to every Tuareg tribe, and the indigo dye used in their clothing permanently leaches into their skin, signifying beauty and wealth. They're also known for creating the Saharan blues, mixing Middle Eastern and African sounds with Tuareg poetry. One of their most famous groups is Tinariwen, who originally spread their music through blank cassettes before the internet and phones. As Grammy winners who've played Glastonbury and Coachella, they continue to sing about the violence towards and displacement of their people while painting a beautiful new color in the tapestry of resilience. When you look into the Sahara, think of the Tuaregs, and let me know where you'd like to go next.
Have you ever wondered how someone like Natasha can take a whole stack of gummies and still be functional and social, but if you were to do that same thing, it would be a very different outcome? There's a couple reasons for this. Of course, she has a high tolerance, but she also has endometriosis. This is something she's talked about a lot. I'm not like outing her. People with endometriosis have changes in their endogenous cannabinoid system, which makes them react to plant-based products differently. Some of these changes are having less cannabinoid receptors, which then your body tries to compensate for by producing more endogenous cannabinoids, essentially to try to give your body more of these natural pain-relieving compounds to interact with those receptors. But even with this compensation, it's typically not enough to help people with the amount of pain they're in, which leads people to the plant to help supplement their body further. One study found that 7.6 out of 10 endometriosis sufferers found that cannabis was an effective pain-relieving tool. Of course, a benefit of whole plant medicine is we can activate multiple receptors in the body and get lessened inflammation, lessened pain, lessened anxiety, so many more benefits. So just a reminder, just because someone's taking a heavy dose doesn't mean they have a problem. They might actually have a solution.
A man spent months filming videos about his obsession with Bjork before carrying out a final, horrifying plan. I hate this story. I'm Melzy. I talk about death, true crime, and dark pop culture lore, so if you're a weirdo too, follow me. In the mid-1990s, Bjork was becoming one of the most recognizable and celebrated musicians in the world. And around that same time, a man named Ricardo Lopez was becoming dangerously obsessed with her. Ricardo was a 21-year-old man living in Hollywood, Florida. He spent most of his time isolated in his apartment, filming himself on video, drawing, ranting on camera, and documenting his growing fixation on Bjork. At first, he idolized her. He talked constantly about her music, her personality, and what he believed she represented. But over time, his obsession became darker and more delusional. Ricardo became especially upset when he learned that Bjork was dating musician Goldie. Specifically, he was enraged that she was dating a black man, and that racism became central to his spiral. Ricardo began convincing himself that Bjork had betrayed him personally, despite the fact that they had obviously never met. Over months, he filmed dozens of disturbing video diaries documenting his downward spiral. In them, he cries, rants, paints his face, talks about harming himself, and increasingly describes Bjork as if she belongs to him. Then his obsession escalated into a plan. Ricardo built a homemade bomb disguised as a book package. Inside was sulfuric acid intended to harm or kill Bjork when she opened it. He mailed the package directly to her home in London. And on September 12, 1996, Ricardo filmed what would be his final video. In it, he listens to Bjork's music, talks to the camera, paints his face red and green, and says goodbye before dying by suicide on camera. After his body was found, police found the tapes and contacted authorities in London immediately. Thankfully, the package reached Bjork's home after Ricardo's death was already discovered and was intercepted by police before she could open it. Bjork herself was reportedly devastated by all of it and released a statement expressing sympathy for Ricardo's family. I had never heard this story before until recently, and honestly, I wish I never heard it. I wish I never saw these photos, and truly, I'm sorry that I'm showing them to you. What do you think? Do you remember this?
Yeah, this is all over the news when it happened.
Have a reputation for being disgusting. For example, stargazy pie. It is a pie with sardine heads sticking out of it. Or haggis, sheep, liver, lungs, and heart mixed with oats and cooked inside an animal stomach. Or jellied eels, boiled until the natural gelatin turns them into fish jelly. Also spaghetti on toast, just canned pasta on bread. And chip buddy, it's fries on buttered bread. That's the whole meal. First of all, the UK is damp, gray, and cold. Not great for growing things. So historically, you're only working with root vegetables, cabbage, oats, barley, dairy, and preserved meats. Survival food, that's it. Then came the Industrial Revolution. Factory workers needed cheap, filling, practical, and efficient. But World War II made it 10 times worse. Food rationing in Britain lasted from World War II until 1954. That's almost a decade after the war ended. So entire generations grew up cooking bland, minimal ingredient meals. But they colonized spices. Yes, ironic, because they were too expensive for regular people to use at home. Spices were business, not dinner. Then immigrants came and saved the menu, thank God. Delicious Indian, Caribbean, and Chinese food became British staples, but some meals did not need saving, like full English breakfast, and shepherd's pie, and sticky toffee pudding. Smash. So a few dishes carried, but some should be considered criminal. Thank you.
You know, the fish head out of the pie is so unnecessary.
You've heard of Aphrodite and Isis, and now it's time for you to know about Ixchel. She was the most powerful goddess in the entire Maya world. Hi, in ancient times you would have known me as Ish, Oshib, Ashpu, Christine, Lady Three Divine Sun, Christine. And today I'm introducing you to the divine feminine energy that governs the moon, the medicine, the floods, the births, the deaths, and the entire cosmos all at once. Ixchel governed love and fertility and medicine and the moon and childbirth, the sacred arts, and the floods that destroyed entire world ages. Ixchel was the moon in every phase, the maiden, the mother, the crone. She was the entire cycle of a woman's life embodied in one divine being. You may have heard of Kali bringing destruction. So does Ixchel, and she does so in order to make room for rebirth. In the Dresden Codex, the oldest surviving Mayan manuscript, she is the one who ends a world age by pouring her sacred waters over the earth, not out of rage, out of necessity, because the old world has to die for the new one to be born. She didn't just rule one domain, she ruled all of them. Ish means sacred feminine, divine authority. Shel means rainbow, so she is Lady Rainbow, the bridge between worlds, but don't let that softness fool you. She has many faces. As the maiden, she was luminous, weaving golden cloth on her sacred loom, governing fertility, love, and the tides of the moon. And as the crone, also known as Chakchel, she wore a serpent crown, clawed feet, a skirt of crossed bones. She was ancient, fierce, untamed, the one who holds the power to end worlds, the same goddess holding every phase with no apology. Her sacred island is Cozumel, near the Yucatan Peninsula. Women from across the entire Mayan world traveled by canoe twice in their lifetime to receive her blessings for fertility, healing, and marriage. It was the most important pilgrimage site in the Mayan world. The Spanish arrived, saw all her statues, didn't understand what they were looking at, and called the island Isla Mujeres. Island of Women. Part of her myth is that when she dies, dragonflies surround her body for 183 days, sharing their life force until she rises again. She dies, she returns every cycle, just like the moon. She is such a powerful reminder of how beautiful women are and how we are a reflection of the goddess and of the mother and how we are incredible with all of our phases. If you want to learn more about the Maya, please follow me for more. Love you guys.
The first iconic vampire in English literature was not Dracula. It was a woman named Carmilla, who's also a lesbian. There's this girl named Laura who lives in a creepy, secluded castle with her dad and a couple of servants. And when Laura is young, she gets a visit in the middle of the night from a girl who she says punctures her chest. But everyone gaslights her into thinking it was just a dream. One night, a carriage crashes outside the castle, and inside is a girl named Carmilla and her mom. Carmilla's mom has an emergency and asks Laura's dad to take care of her daughter for a few weeks. Laura and Carmilla recognize each other from the childhood dream and quickly become very close. However, Carmilla has some quirks. She sleeps all day and freaks out when she hears religious songs, but Laura runs through the red flags because she is smitten. Meanwhile, women in nearby villages are dropping like flies, and Laura finds an old painting of her ancestor, Countess Mircalla, who looks exactly like Carmilla. Awkward, since Carmilla has been flirting with her. Then Laura starts having nightmares about a furry cat-like monster that leaves puncture wounds on her body. Things get even weirder when Carmilla shows up at the edge of her bed covered in blood and babbling creepy stuff. Laura's health spirals, so a doctor is brought in and he immediately spots the vampire bite marks. So Laura's dad decides to road trip to a nearby village for answers. They join a baron who's also a vampire hunter and head to her grave, but she's gone. Then they find Carmilla chilling in a tomb and the baron stakes her through the heart. Just to be extra sure, they cut off the head and burn the body. Laura is then sent on a tour of Italy to recover from her trauma, but despite her fancy trip, she was never the same. Thank you.
God showed you this for a reason. So you see that right there? You know what that is? It's a turtle, but not just any ordinary turtle. Scientists believe this turtle has been around for hundreds of years. And that means this turtle was alive before your grandparents were born, before your great-grandparents were born. This turtle has been chilling in the ocean for hundreds of years. And what's my point with this video? Well, honestly, don't you just love turtles? Don't you love the fact that they don't rush? This turtle has been chilling for hundreds of years. He hasn't been in a hurry. He's just getting from point A to point B, and he's taking his time. He's not rushing. Turtles don't compare themselves to the dolphin swimming next to them, even though the dolphin is swimming way faster. The turtle doesn't look at the dolphin like, yo, why are they swimming so much faster than me? No, they just move at their own pace. And so what's my point with this video? Slow progress does not mean no progress. You're not behind in life. How could you be behind in life when it's your life? If a turtle judged their life based off of how fast they were going compared to a dolphin, they would live their entire life thinking that they're slow, thinking that something's wrong with them. God's timing is perfect. The Bible says he makes everything beautiful in his time. Whose time? Not my time, not your time, God's time. And God is never late. We're just impatient. God said in the Bible, when the time is right, I will make it happen. God knows the right time, the right place, the right person, and the right answers to all of your prayers. And he already has it prepared for you. He's just preparing you for it. Think about the people in the Bible who had to wait. Abraham waited 25 years. Joseph waited 13 years. Moses waited 40 years. David waited 15 years. Even Jesus waited 30 years. You're not late. You're not behind. You're not forgotten about. You're on God's timeline, and that's the best timeline to be on. Can I get a amen?
Amen.
God knew you needed to see this. You're like, why did God want me to see this? What the heck is coming out of that whale? That's what I thought when I saw it too, but stay till the end because I did some research and this will blow your mind. So that white stuff you see coming out, that's whale milk. And did you know whale milk is 50% fat, which is like really thick? It's so thick that it doesn't dissolve in the water, which is perfect for the whales because if it dissolved in the water, they wouldn't be able to drink it. And man, this just made me say, wow, God is so intentional. Like if God is that intentional with the whales to make sure the milk is that specific amount of fat so it doesn't dissolve in the water, then you best believe he's intentional with you and your life. Amen. If he cares that much about the whales, how much more does he care about you? Jesus said the same thing in the Bible. He said, if God cares for the birds of the air, how much more will he take care of you? Jesus said, you are way more valuable to God than those birds. No offense to the birds. Hey, I like birds, but God said you are more valuable to him. Think about it. God didn't create the birds or the lilies or these whales in his own image. He created you in his own image. In the very beginning, when God created the birds, the lilies, the whales, the sky, the sun, the stars, the heavens, and the earth, he said, it is good. But not until he created you did he say, it is very good. And when God created all the other things, like the birds and all the other things, he spoke them into existence. He said, let there be light. Let there be this. Let there be that. But when it came to you, he didn't speak you into existence. He did something different. He formed you from the dust.
He literally formed you with his hands. He was like, man, this one's different. I got to get my hands on this thing. And then after he created you, he did something he didn't do for anything else. He breathed life into you. That means you have something inside of you that's not in anything else. You have greatness inside of you.
God knew you needed to see this. Watch this video. Look really closely. You won't believe what's on this mountain. You see that? What is that? That is a bear just chilling on a mountain. But isn't it crazy that there's a bear on this mountain that we would have never even seen if it wasn't for the internet? There's fish in the deepest parts of the ocean that we'll never see. There's birds flying in the sky that we'll never see. There's deer and other wildlife and forests that we've never seen. And you know what's crazy? God is literally providing and taking care of every single one of them. And you know what Jesus said in the Bible? He said, look at the birds of the air. They don't be worrying. They don't be stressing. Yet God takes care of them every single day. And he said, aren't you way more valuable to God than those birds? Think about that for a second. God is feeding a bear on a mountain that nobody's watching. God is taking care of fish at the bottom of the ocean that nobody even knows exist. And you really think he forgot about you? And you know what's crazy is that the bear isn't stressing at all. These animals aren't stressing at all. And God takes care of them. And God didn't even make them in his own image. He made us in his own image. So if God is that faithful with the bears and the birds and the fish and the wildlife, then how much more faithful is he going to be with you? God didn't send his one and only son to die for the birds or die for this bear. He sent his one and only son to die for you. Because to God, you're not just a bird. You're not just a bear. You're not just a fish. You're his child. And he's not going to forget about his own kid. He said that in the Bible. He said, just like a mother cannot forget about her nursing child, how could I ever forget about you?
There's something going on with Google and mosquitoes. So peep this. There is a company by the name of Debug. So what they're doing is bioengineering mosquitoes.
I mean, wasn't Bill Gates doing that?
He was.
How?
Yeah.
It's our turn now.
So look at this. They're actually bioengineering 64 million mosquitoes across the U.S. for the next 2 years.
Why are they doing this?
It's a project that Google is actually funding. Well, it's a company that's owned by Google.
So they really want a piece of the action.
So it says here that they're using AI machine learning to sort out the males from the female mosquitoes because female mosquitoes are the only ones that bite.
Really?
Yeah. So male mosquitoes don't bite.
So they're trying to eliminate female mosquitoes?
No. So this company is taking a certain bacteria and affecting the male mosquitoes. I think it's called Wabaka or something like that.
Sounds like some Star Wars shit.
Yeah,
Right?
Wabakia. And this actual bacteria is in half of mosquitoes or half in insects overall. So they're taking that and putting that into the males, making them sterile.
Neutering the mosquitoes?
Yeah. They're going to take the males and then put all that bacteria in the males and then go, mate with the females.
So, okay, they're not creating mosquitoes. They're just fucking them up.
Yes. Here's how it works. They're sorting out the males from the females mosquitoes. And then they have these GPS guided debug vans to release them in certain neighborhoods.
This sounds like some shit that I seen in a cartoon.
This is already happening overseas right now, though. They've been doing it for the past 10 years.
How do we know they haven't been doing it already?
Yeah, we don't know how long they've been doing it.
I don't believe they actually tell us when they do anything. They treat us like mosquitoes. Like, what do these numbskulls need to know for? Let's tell them when we want to tell them.
They're doing this in Singapore right now, where they release about 10 million a day.
Just close from here.
So they have a program. It's the World Mosquito Program. They have a global program for mosquitoes.
That shit is crazy.
So yeah. And it's going on in different parts of the world right now to where they're doing this right now. And it's Google funded. Because what's the side effects of that to where, yeah, we can do this and bioengineer mosquitoes, which I think sounds like
they already did it to us.
In 2020, making people sterile, making men sterile.
Or, you know how the ticks, they bite you and then you don't want meat anymore?
What's it called?
Alpha-gal syndrome.
Okay, so if ticks can do it, y'all got these new mosquitoes rolling out in 2027.
Yeah, that's what they're doing right now.
What are the mosquitoes going to bite us and we're not going to like now?
That sounds pretty plausible because, for one, they're already doing it, like you said, with the ticks and whatnot. People are finding boxes of ticks and people are getting alpha-gal syndrome.
Do you remember that movie Ticks?
I do.
Wait, there's a movie called Ticks?
Oh, there's a couple of them.
Yeah, there is. There is.
Oh, it was terrible. It's horrible.
What's his name is in it?
Carlton? Carlton's in it?
I think Carlton's in it. It's always in the movies.
Always in the movies.
They're bioengineering ticks and then, okay, now it's happening.
Weaponizing insects. We're really living in a movie. Wild times, folks.
This is the first time in human history we have been dunking chicken and turkey in chlorine, labeling it as organic, and people are buying the ish out of it. 97% of chickens processed in the U.S. are bathed in chlorine. And yes, that includes...
Why is the US government trying to poison their people?
It's certified organic, you know, the premium stuff that we're all paying extra money for at Whole Foods or Erewhon. Here's why. Industrial farming processes thousands of chickens in the same bath. If one bird's carrying salmonella, it spreads to the entire batch. So the USDA solution, well, we will mandate a chlorine bath. Chlorine washed chicken is banned in the European Union for good reason. They looked at the process and said, yeah, I'm out. But here in the States, federal regulators don't even disclose. Companies put whatever they want on the label. It's crazy. So you have no idea that you're buying pool chicken or turkey. So what can you eat? Look for both air chilled and pasture raised on the package. The birds live normal lives and then they pass into the afterlife in a cold chamber, which is the most humane way to do it. No cross contamination, no chemical residue, just real chicken that hasn't been marinated in cleaning supplies. I'm Drew Canoli and I'm on a mission to transform 100 million lives. Let's go.
Do you guys know that Americans are flying to Cuba to get Alzheimer's treatment? And it's not to slow the Alzheimer's or simply to manage it. It's to reverse it. It's a drug called NeuroCIM developed in Cuba. 85% of the people that were under the placebo got worse. And over 80% of the people that were on the drug either got better or at least stabilized. One patient went from not being able to even recognize his family to naming them, talking, and being himself again. This is like getting your family member back thanks to a Cuban drug. In the US, Alzheimer's drugs primarily aim to slow your decline, but Cuba's drug is actually seeing improvements and stabilizations and not just slowdowns. That's why doctors like Bill Blanchett from Colorado has been taking his patients to Cuba to get treatment. And they have to fly over to Cuba because the American blockade on the island doesn't allow them to sell the medicine to us. So remember that 7 million Americans have Alzheimer's, a potential breakthrough drug to help them exist, and it's the US's blockade that's preventing people from gaining access to it.
If the first cheerleaders were men, then how did we go from this to this and this and this? Before 1898, cheers just came from the crowd until this guy, Johnny Campbell, got up from his seat, jumped over the fence, ran onto the field and just started yelling words that rhymed. And everybody else was like, wait, that actually works. So more men started doing it, but they added megaphones and arm motions and stuff. Women were eventually allowed, but it was mostly male until World War II. At this time, they wore wool sweaters and very long skirts, but because men left for war, women took over. The skirts got shorter for comfort. Then in 1949, this dude named Lawrence created the first cheer training organization. And in 1954, the NFL created the first cheerleading team. They were paid nothing. In the 1970s, schools were forced to add more women's sports, so cheerleading it is. Skirts got shorter again for comfort. In the 80s, people were like, let's just make cheerleading its own thing. So All-Star Competitive Cheer is born and it gets televised by ESPN. As cheerleading got more and more athletic, uniforms got even shorter and tighter, mostly to facilitate all the tumbling and stunts, which is basically gymnastics. But it was also to sexualize women, let's be for real. And the NFL doesn't even have an excuse. This is blatant sexualization. So we went from men yelling to human flight, but make it sexy. Thank you.
There's a movie out that has Hollywood seething, and go figure, it's because it's about God. Now, this film, called The Story of Everything, quite literally changes all that we learned about the evolution theory, and this is something that every Christian needs to pay attention to. For generations, we were lied to that faith and science are at odds, but this film destroys that false narrative. Some of the world's smartest minds sound the alarm using science to explicitly prove what the Bible has said about creation thousands of years ago. For the first time, movies are now being made to damage the devil's kingdom rather than advance it, and this is definitely one of those.
Or as to say that Tokyo shits on New York.
Really?
I don't think it's close. Tokyo is the best food city on earth, and it's like by a mile. Everything you have there leaves you going, what the fuck am I doing with my life? How is this possible? There's this thing about America versus Tokyo. I was there with Philip Franklin Lee, who's a Michelin star chef. When you travel with a chef, it's different. And he had been there. He goes, you know, the thing about when you're in most hotels in the United States, you go time to eat. Let's leave the hotel. You can eat at the hotel, but you're like, why were we at the hotel? Let's go find somewhere else to eat. In Tokyo, you're like, we should go to the lobby and eat. We were staying at the Edition. We go to the lobby. I ordered a sirloin and I go, this is one of the best 3 steaks I've ever had in my life. One time we went to a hotel where we had salad and I'm eating the salad. I don't know if this makes sense, but like you take a bite of the tomato and you go, if you were trying to describe how a tomato should taste.
Oh yeah, that's
this
great.
is the tomato. Then they were like, would you like fresh crab legs? And they bring out off the boat crab legs. And just on a skillet, he throws down butter, salt. He seasons them, slices them up, and we're eating them. I'm like, man, this is the best crab legs I've ever had in my life. You're like, I want a coffee. You go down the street, you buy a cup of coffee, you're drinking the coffee, and you're like, oh my God. And they're like, well, yeah, he's been making coffee for 63 years. This is all he does.
Yeah.
So you're like, this is the best coffee I've ever had. Certain things are obvious. For instance, with sushi, Philip's a sushi chef. He was explaining to me that when they go to the fish market in Tokyo and they grade the levels of tuna, let's say, the best tunas go to the highest bidders, which are the best sushi places in Tokyo. There's another tier below it as you go down that they go, nobody wants this. This is below our standards. That is the best thing that you can buy here. He's like, I serve the thing that they're like, we won't serve that because that's not good enough for us. Just their own standards for everything are at another level. They have mastered pizza to the point where you have Italians going to Tokyo going, this is better than our pizza. They've done that with burgers. Their standards of excellence are so far beyond what we can even conceive of. They really have mastered food. I've never had anything.
I want to try. Oh, thank you for staying till the end. I hope you like my lineup. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss my next video. Have an awesome day and always, God bless.